The family sent the ugly daughter as payment, but she was exactly what the billionaire wanted. They sent the ugly daughter as payment to settle a debt, and the billionaire accepted her as a public pawn. She needs the job to save her family. He needs the deal to protect his empire. She refuses to be a prop. She speaks plain, fixes problems, and suddenly the world likes her more than they like him. But someone is planting lies. A secret ledger ties her family to danger, and a rival is pulling strings to destroy them both. He can buy anything except the truth, and maybe not her trust. Who will pay the final price? The family that traded her, the billionaire who chose her, or the woman who won't be owned? Through the sleek glass of Manhattan's highest penthouses, morning news broadcasts flickered to life. Every major network carried the same story. Crown Global's latest philanthropic initiative. Breaking news from Crown Global. CEO Matteo Crown announces a revolutionary partnership. The camera panned across the stage where Matteo Crown commanded attention without effort. His tailored black suit might as well have been armor, his posture radiating authority as he gripped the podium. Steel-gray eyes surveyed the crowd of reporters like a general assessing troops. Crown Global remains committed to community investment. His voice carried through the speakers, measured and controlled. Our foundation will continue to partner with organizations that share our vision. 9 miles away, in a colonial-style house that had seen better days, Izzy Marlowe's morning was shattering into pieces. "You can't be serious!" She stared at her brother Jonas, who paced the formal sitting room like a caged animal. The antique furniture, passed down through generations, seemed to shrink from his agitation. Their mother Vivian perched on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. "Darling, please try to understand." "Understand what?" Jonas whirled around. "That you made a deal with Crown without consulting anyone? The timing couldn't be worse." Sunlight streamed through the bay windows, highlighting the worn spots in the carpet and the slight disrepair of the Crown molding. Izzy felt the weight of their family home's history pressing down on her shoulders. "The audit is coming," Jonas continued, running a hand through his politician-perfect hair. "If we don't secure this alliance with Crown Global by the end of the week, everything falls apart. My career, our family's standing—" "So tell me about this deal," Izzy interrupted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Vivian's face crumpled. "Crown will publicly partner with us if one of our daughters becomes the face of the arrangement. For 1 year." "You mean a puppet?" Izzy said flatly. Jonas's phone pinged. He pulled it out, his face darkening. "The photographer just received Crown's draft announcement. They're naming you, Izzy." The room went silent. Izzy felt the blood drain from her face as she snatched the phone. There it was in black and white. Her name, her photo already formatted for release. "Me?" She looked at her mother in disbelief. "You arranged this without asking me?" "I thought you'd refuse," Vivian whispered. "I thought, if you refused, we could save face. Say we considered the offer but declined with dignity." "But now we can't afford dignity," Jonas cut in. "The audit will destroy us. Dad's old dealings, the foundation's questionable accounts, everything comes under scrutiny. We'll lose the house, Sarah's medical fund." Izzy's chest tightened at the mention of their younger sister. Sarah's treatments weren't covered by insurance, and the special account they'd built up over years was tied to the family's assets. "This isn't fair," she said, but the fight was draining from her voice. "None of it is fair," Jonas agreed, his tone softening. "But Crown Global's protection would shield us from the worst of it. Their lawyers, their influence, their ownership." Izzy finished bitterly. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked away precious seconds. Outside, a car horn honked, life continuing normally while Izzy's world tilted on its axis. "I won't be sold," she declared, standing up. No one's selling you. Vivian protested weakly. Really, because it sounds like I'm being bartered for financial protection and political influence. Jonas stepped closer, his face grave. Without this deal, we lose everything. The house, our reputation, Sarah's future. Stop. Izzy held up a hand. Her mind raced through the implications, the dominoes of destruction that would fall if she refused. Their home of 3 generations, the political capital that let them help others, Sarah's vital treatments. The sun was setting by the time Izzy made her decision, casting long shadows across the sitting room's faded grandeur. She grabbed her bag, her movements sharp with suppressed anger. Where are you going? Vivian asked, rising halfway from the sofa. To Crown Tower, Izzy replied, her voice clipped. I want to see exactly what I'm signing before I agree to anything. Izzy, Jonas started. Don't. She turned at the doorway, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I'm doing this for Sarah and for the family, but don't pretend it's anything else. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that felt like a gunshot. Through the window, Jonas and Vivian watched their daughter walk down the path, her spine straight despite the weight now resting on her shoulders. The last rays of sunlight caught her hair, creating a brief halo before she disappeared into the gathering dusk, headed for the towering symbol of power that was about to change her life. In the empty sitting room, the photographer's phone pinged again. Another draft announcement, another piece of Izzy's future being decided without her. The grandfather clock continued its steady count, marking time as the shadows lengthened and the Marlowe family's fate hung in the balance. The taxi's windshield wipers fought against the steady rain as Izzy watched the city transform from familiar neighborhoods to the gleaming financial district. Streetlights reflected off wet pavement, creating halos that blurred together in her tired eyes. Crown Tower, the driver announced, pulling up to the curb. Camera flashes exploded through the rain. Paparazzi huddled under black umbrellas, their lenses trained on the tower's entrance like hunters waiting for prey. Izzy's stomach clenched. Back entrance possible? She asked. The driver shook his head. One way in, miss. Taking a deep breath, Izzy stepped out into the rain. Her practical flats splashed through puddles as she hurried past the photographers. Their questions bounced off her like the raindrops. Miss Marlowe, is it true about the merger? Over here, look this way. Are you Crown's new acquisition? The tower's lobby rose 40 feet high, all glass and steel and stark white marble. A security guard approached immediately, his earpiece betraying constant communication with unseen others. Miss Marlowe, this way, please. She followed him through a series of checkpoints, metal detectors, ID verification, biometric scans. Each layer of security stripped away another piece of the outside world until Izzy felt naked, despite her sensible blazer and knee-length skirt. The elevator rode smooth as silk to the 50th floor. Another guard escorted her down a minimalist hallway to a conference room that could have doubled as an art gallery. One wall was entirely glass, offering a vertigo-inducing view of the rain-wrapped city below. Wait here, the guard instructed. Izzy paced the room's perimeter, noting the absence of personal touches. Everything was designed to intimidate. The massive abstract painting that dominated one wall, the conference table that could seat 20 but held only 2 place settings, the chairs positioned so visitors would face both Matteo and that dizzying view. The door opened silently. Matteo Crown entered like he owned not just the building, but the air inside it. His tailored suit probably cost more than her car, the charcoal fabric emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean frame. Dark eyes assessed her with clinical detachment. Miss Marlowe. His voice was deep, controlled. I expected someone different. Sorry to disappoint. Izzy replied, refusing to fidget under his scrutiny. Though I'm not the one who arranged this meeting. A slight frown creased his brow. Your mother indicated you were eager for the opportunity. My mother was mistaken. About many things. He gestured to the chair. Sit. Let's discuss terms. Izzy sat, forcing herself not to be intimidated by his height as he remained standing. He pulled a thick contract from a leather portfolio. 1 year as Crown Global's community ambassador. You'll attend events, interface with our charitable partners, present a unified public image. He began listing points with mechanical precision. Full security detail, competitive salary, media training and wardrobe allowance, strict non-disclosure agreement covering all aspects of Crown Global's operations. I won't be a puppet, Izzy interrupted. I have experience in community outreach. Real experience, not just photo ops. Matteo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Your role will be carefully managed. We have a specific image to maintain. And I have specific skills to offer, unless you just wanted a pretty face to nod and smile. Your mother suggested you'd be amenable. My mother doesn't speak for me. Izzy leaned forward. I'll do this, but I won't be decorative. I want input on program development and implementation. Rain drummed against the windows as they stared each other down. Finally, Matteo sat, his movements precise and controlled. One concession, he said. Given the media attention this partnership will generate, you'll have private quarters here in the tower. Separate entrance, full security, no paparazzi camping outside your family's home. Izzy's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. The bank called. We have until Friday. Her throat tightened. Show me where to sign. Matteo pushed the contract across the table with a fountain pen that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Izzy scanned the key points, her hand hovering over the signature line. The quarters? She asked. 48th floor, private elevator access. Your things can be moved tomorrow. She signed, each letter feeling like another bar in a gilded cage. Matteo's signature followed, his strokes bold and authoritative. Welcome to Crown Global, Miss Marlowe. The security guard reappeared to escort her to her new quarters. The elevator opened directly into a foyer larger than her bedroom at home. Everything was pristine, impersonal, decorated in shades of grey and white. Access code is 4891, the guard explained. 24-hour security stationed in the lobby. Ring the desk if you need anything. Izzy nodded numbly. When he left, she explored the space. Living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, kitchen stocked with expensive appliances she'd never use, bedroom suite with a bed big enough for 5 people. She kicked off her shoes and sat on the windowsill, watching rain trace patterns on the glass. Far below, the paparazzi's cameras still flashed occasionally, hungry for glimpses of the tower's secrets. Her phone buzzed again. Jonas this time. You did the right thing. But as Izzy stared at her reflection superimposed over the glittering city, she wondered if there was any right choice when all the options were wrong. The rain continued falling, and sleep remained far away as midnight approached in her new golden prison. Camilla Santos, Crown Global's PR director, circled Izzy like a shark assessing prey. The blazer needs tailoring, and that hair, too casual. My hair is fine, Izzy said, resisting the urge to touch her simple bun. The morning light streamed through the prep room's windows, highlighting every scrutinizing glance Camilla cast her way. You represent Crown Global now. Everything must be perfect. Camilla thrust a tablet forward. Here's your statement. Memorize it. Izzy scanned the words, her frown deepening. Crown Global's innovative synergy with community partners, this is corporate nonsense. It's carefully crafted messaging. Camilla checked her watch. We have 2 hours before the press conference. Again, from the top. For 90 minutes, they drilled the soulless script. Izzy's throat grew dry from repeating empty phrases about strategic philanthropy and maximizing charitable impact metrics. At precisely 1 p.m., Camilla led her to the tower's press room. Cameras flashed as Izzy approached the podium, the weight of her family's future pressing down on her shoulders. She looked at the teleprompter, saw the hollow words scrolling past. Then she glanced at the reporters' faces, bored, cynical, expecting another manufactured moment. Something inside her rebelled. "I had a script prepared," Izzy began, ignoring Camilla's sharp intake of breath. "But I'd rather speak from the heart. I've spent years working with community organizations, not as a figurehead, but in the trenches. I've sorted donations, taught literacy classes, balanced budgets for underfunded programs. That's the experience I bring to Crown Global." The reporters leaned forward, suddenly alert. Camilla's face had gone pale. "This partnership isn't about photo ops or press releases. It's about real people, real needs, and finding ways to meet them. That's my commitment, not just to Crown Global, but to every community we serve." She stepped back from the podium as phones buzzed with notifications. Within an hour, the clip had gone viral. Crown Global's new face keeps it real. In his office 40 floors above, Matteo Crown watched the footage on repeat, his expression unreadable. At 3 p.m. sharp, Izzy entered his domain of glass and steel. "That wasn't the approved statement," he said without preamble. "No, it wasn't." Izzy met his gaze. "It was better. You were hired to present our message, not create your own. I was hired to be the face of Crown's charitable initiatives. Looking authentic helps that cause." Matteo's jaw tightened. "We have procedures, which got you labeled as out of touch." Izzy pulled out her phone, showing him the trending responses. "Look at the sentiment analysis. People are praising Crown Global for choosing someone genuine. Sentiment doesn't drive strategy, but it drives donations, trust, community buy-in." Izzy stepped closer to his desk. "Let me prove it. There's a community center 3 blocks from here that needs immediate help. Their heating system failed, and they're struggling to serve hot meals. One afternoon of hands-on work would show we're serious about local impact." Matteo studied her, his dark eyes intense. "You're not going to play by the rules, are you? Not if they get in the way of doing actual good." A long moment passed. Finally, he reached for his phone. "Theodore, clear my afternoon schedule." He stood, adjusting his cuffs. "Show me this community center." 3 hours later, Izzy and Matteo stood in the center's donation sorting room, surrounded by boxes of emergency supplies. She'd shed her blazer, sleeves rolled up as she organized canned goods. Matteo had surprisingly stayed, his own jacket discarded, tie loosened. "You missed a box," Izzy called out, nodding toward a container by his feet. "I sign checks. I don't typically sort donations." Despite his words, he bent to lift the box. "Afraid of getting those $1,000 shoes dirty?" "These are actually 2,000. A ghost of a smile played at his lips. "Though they've probably depreciated in the last hour." Izzy snorted. "Poor baby. However will you cope?" "I'll survive." He moved closer, reaching past her to grab another box. His sleeve brushed her arm. "Though my dry cleaner will have questions about the dust on this shirt. Tell them you did honest work for once, as opposed to my usual dishonest work." Their eyes met, challenge sparking between them. Izzy became acutely aware of how close they stood, the heat radiating from his body, the faint scent of his cologne. "The day's not over," she said, stepping back. "Plenty of time to prove yourself useful." "Is that what you think? That I'm not useful?" "I think you're very useful, from a safe distance in your tower." She handed him another box. "This needs to go to the kitchen. Giving orders already." Someone has to. His low chuckle surprised her. Careful, Miss Marlowe. I might start thinking you enjoy challenging my authority. Would that be so terrible? The air between them crackled with tension. Before he could respond, a volunteer called out that the evening meal prep was starting. "Duty calls," Izzy said, breaking their staring contest. "Unless sorting donations is too plebeian for you." Matteo rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms. "Lead the way, Miss Marlowe. Show me how the other half lives." As they worked side by side in the cramped sorting room, their barbed comments continued, each exchange charged with something that felt dangerous and electric. The community center's clock ticked toward evening, but neither seemed in a hurry to leave. The city lights sparkled through sheets of evening rain as Matteo's private elevator ascended Crown Tower. Izzy stood as far from him as the small space allowed, still dusty from their afternoon of volunteer work. Her jeans were smudged with paint, and a streak of dirt marked her cheek, but she made no move to clean it off. The quiet hum of the elevator emphasized the tension between them. "The paparazzi are getting aggressive," Matteo said, showing her his phone. A grainy photo showed them leaving the community center. The headline screamed, "Crown's new charity case, more than business." In the image, Matteo's hand hovered near her lower back, though Izzy remembered him never actually touching her. "I can handle a few photographers," she replied, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The simple silver pendant, her grandmother's, glinted at her throat, the only piece of jewelry she wore. "You'll stay here tonight. The tower has better security." His tone was flat, matter-of-fact, his posture rigid in his still immaculate suit, despite hours of community service. It wasn't a request. Izzy bristled at his tone, but knew he had a point. She'd spotted at least 3 photographers lurking outside her family's modest brownstone this morning. One had even followed her to the coffee shop, snapping pictures while she ordered her usual plain black coffee. The elevator opened directly into his penthouse suite. Minimalist decor in greys and whites spread before her, everything screaming wealth and control. The floors were polished marble, the furniture sleek and undoubtedly custom-made. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the rainy cityscape like a living painting. A staff member materialized to guide her to the guest quarters, but Matteo waved them away with a subtle flick of his wrist. "Join me for dinner first," he said. "We should discuss today's improvisation." The way he said the last word made it clear what he thought of her unplanned, hands-on approach at the community center. The private dining room was intimate, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Rain streaked the glass, distorting the lights below into a watercolor of urban brilliance. A small table had already been set for 2, though Izzy doubted he'd planned this. Crystal glasses caught the soft lighting, and fine china awaited their meal. "I didn't expect you to actually work today," Matteo said, as they were served by a silent, efficient staff member who disappeared as quickly as they'd appeared. The aroma of perfectly seasoned food filled the space between them. "Disappointed I got your hands dirty?" Izzy challenged, noticing how he'd somehow managed to keep his tailored shirt pristine despite hauling boxes of supplies all afternoon. "Surprised? Most people in your position would have stayed for the photo op and left." His dark eyes studied her reaction as he cut into his steak with surgical precision. "I'm not most people." Izzy took a bite of perfectly cooked salmon, the flavor melting on her tongue. "And what position exactly do you think I'm in?" "The reluctant society girlfriend." His bluntness startled her. "That's what they'll assume, given your family's situation." He gestured with his fork to the phone, where the tabloid headline still glowed. "I'm not playing girlfriend for anyone." Her voice was quiet but firm, her hands steady as she reached for her water glass. No? His dark eyes studied her, absorbing every micro-expression. Then what are you playing at? I'm not playing at anything. That's the point. She met his gaze unflinchingly. Those kids needed actual help, not just PR stunts. Silence stretched between them. The city glittered beyond the windows, a reminder of the world watching their every move. Rain pattered against the glass, creating a soothing counterpoint to the tension in the room. Tell me about your family, he said finally, setting down his knife with deliberate care. Why? She looked up, suspicious. Because I like knowing what I'm dealing with. The statement was honest, at least. No pretense of casual interest. Izzy set down her fork with a soft clink. We're not all dealing pieces on your chessboard, Matteo. Everything is a chessboard in my world. He didn't apologize for it, his expression completely unapologetic. That explains a lot. She met his gaze. Single child, strict upbringing. Something flickered in his eyes, a momentary crack in the armor. What makes you say that? The way you expect absolute control. Someone taught you that early. Her observation was keen, effortless. You didn't even flinch when that donor cancelled today. You just recalculated. My father, he admitted after a pause, rotating his wine glass slowly. Everything was about discipline, appearance, power. Emotions were inefficient. Sounds lonely. She didn't offer pity, just understanding. Sounds effective. He gestured at the tower around them, the empire visible through the windows. I built this empire on those lessons. At what cost? She asked softly, the question hanging between them. His jaw tightened. Why do you refuse to play the game? The clothes, the social expectations. It would make this easier. He glanced pointedly at her simple cotton shirt and worn jeans. Because I won't pretend to be something I'm not. My mother spent years trying to turn me into the perfect debutante. I chose books over balls, volunteering over social climbing. She touched her grandmother's pendant unconsciously. This means more to me than any designer necklace ever could. And now? He leaned forward slightly. Now I'm here because my family needs help, but I won't be a puppet. Her eyes flashed with that fierce moral clarity that kept throwing him off balance. Matteo leaned forward, his presence suddenly magnetic, filling the space between them. You could have power in this arrangement, real influence. By becoming what? Your trained poodle? The unsentimental wit in her voice cut through his practiced charm. By learning to use the system instead of fighting it. His voice lowered, intense. You have ideas, Izzy, good ones. I saw how you reorganized that entire donation system this afternoon in minutes. They'd shifted closer without realizing it, the air growing thick with tension. His eyes dropped to her lips, and for a moment Izzy felt the pull between them, raw and dangerous. The rain intensified outside, a drumming rhythm that matched her quickening pulse. She jerked back, standing abruptly. I should get some rest. Izzy. His voice was rough. He stood too, closer than he should be. She could smell his expensive cologne mingled with the faintest trace of the day's honest work. This isn't part of our arrangement. She stepped away, proud that her voice remained steady. Good night, Mr. Crown. She felt his eyes on her as she left, her heart pounding against her ribs. The guest suite was luxurious but felt like a cage, all cream silks and plush carpets. The bathroom gleamed with marble and gold fixtures. Through the wall, she heard him pace in the hallway before his footsteps retreated, measured and deliberate. Izzy pressed her palm against the cool window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Somewhere far below, photographers waited in the rain, hoping to catch a glimpse of the billionaire and his supposed new love interest. The thought made her stomach tighten. In his private office, Matteo stared at the closed door between their rooms, a tumbler of scotch untouched in his hand. Rain lashed against the windows, echoing the turmoil he refused to acknowledge. For the first time in years, his carefully ordered world felt off balance. He should be annoyed by her defiance, her stubborn refusal to conform. Instead, he found himself replaying their conversation, the flash in her eyes when she challenged him, the quiet strength in her convictions. The way she'd rolled up her sleeves and directed volunteers twice her size without hesitation. Dangerous thoughts for a man who'd built his life on control. The scotch burned his throat as he finally took a drink, the expensive liquor failing to wash away his confusion. Through the windows, cameras flashed in the distance, vultures waiting for their story. He'd protect her from them, at least. That much he could control. But as he listened to the silence from her room, Matteo Crown admitted something he rarely acknowledged. Control wasn't everything he wanted anymore. The realization settled over him like the storm clouds gathering over his empire. Morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Crown Foundation's volunteer center. Izzy sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by spreadsheets and scheduling documents. Her laptop balanced precariously on a stack of donation boxes. "This scheduling system is a mess," she muttered, highlighting another overlap in volunteer shifts. Camilla peered over her shoulder. "What do you mean?" "Look." Izzy pointed to her screen. "You've got 3 different coordinators booking the same time slots. No wonder turnout is inconsistent. And these supply delivery times, they're scheduled when most volunteers are leaving. We've always done it this way," one of the program directors said defensively. "That doesn't make it right." Izzy pulled up another document. "If we shift the morning deliveries to coincide with peak volunteer hours, we could sort and distribute donations same day. Right now, stuff sits in storage for days." Camilla's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Can you draft a new schedule?" "Already done." Izzy handed over a color-coded spreadsheet. "I also noticed we're wasting money on rented storage units. If we clear the backlog and maintain same-day processing, we could eliminate 3 units. That's thousands in savings every month." The program directors huddled around the document, murmuring in surprise. Camilla studied Izzy with new respect. "This is actually brilliant," Camilla admitted. "Simple but effective." Sometimes the best solutions are the obvious ones. Izzy stood, stretching. "We should also cross-train volunteers. Right now, everyone's siloed into specific tasks. If people knew multiple roles, we could flex coverage when someone's absent." "Implementation could start next week," one director said eagerly. "Sooner." Izzy gestured at the waiting volunteers. "We can begin today. I'll help train the morning shift." By noon, the volunteer center hummed with organized energy. Donations moved smoothly from intake to sorting to distribution. Volunteers chatted as they learned new stations, the atmosphere lighter and more social. Izzy was demonstrating proper sorting techniques when she noticed Matteo watching from the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but she thought she caught a flicker of approval before he disappeared down the hall. At 2:00, she headed to the break room for coffee. The hallway curved past Matteo's office, and his door was slightly ajar. "The partnership gives us leverage," she heard him say. "Once the Marlowes are publicly tied to Crown, Jonas won't risk opposing our bid." Izzy froze. "The development contract is worth billions," Matteo continued. "Having his sister as our foundation's face makes it politically difficult for him to award it elsewhere. The PR boost is just a bonus." The coffee forgotten, Izzy's hands clenched into fists. She'd known this was a business arrangement, but hearing him reduce her to a pawn in his game with Jonas made her blood boil. She waited until his call ended, then pushed open his door without knocking. "Was any of it real?" she demanded. Matteo looked up, unsurprised. "I assume you overheard. The foundation work, the community support. It's all just window dressing for your real plan, isn't it? Business and charity aren't mutually exclusive." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "The foundation does good work. That doesn't mean I can't also use this arrangement strategically." "By using me to pressure Jonas? Your brother controls a multi-billion-dollar development contract. Did you really think this was just about charitable giving?" The casual admission stung worse than a lie would have. "You could have told me." "Would you have agreed if I had?" "No." "Then you understand why I didn't." He moved around his desk. "This changes nothing about our arrangement. It changes everything." Izzy backed away from his approach. "You're manipulating my family. I'm creating a situation that benefits everyone. The foundation gets publicity and funding, your family gets financial security, Crown gets the development contract, even the community benefits from increased investment. Don't pretend this is altruistic. You wanted leverage over Jonas." "Yes." His honesty was brutal. "And now I have it. The question is, what will you do about it?" Izzy's mind raced. Walking away would destroy her family. Staying meant being complicit in Matteo's manipulation. But maybe. "I'll keep working," she said finally. "The foundation needs help, whatever your motives, but I won't be your puppet with Jonas. I don't need you to be. Your presence is enough." The calculated assessment in his eyes made her skin crawl. She turned to leave, then paused. "The sad thing is, the foundation actually does good work. If you focused on that instead of playing power games, you could make real change." "I don't play games, Izzy. I win them." She looked back at him, seeing clearly now the ruthless businessman beneath the philanthropic veneer. "Maybe, but at what cost?" She left him standing in his office, her mind already working on how to protect her family while maintaining some control. The foundation work was real, even if Matteo's motives weren't. She could use that, build her own influence through genuine results. Two could play at leverage. Walking back to the volunteer center, Izzy's determination hardened. She'd keep working, keep implementing changes that helped people. And while Matteo focused on his political chess game, she'd create something he couldn't control. Real impact that went beyond PR stunts and power plays. Let him think he'd won. She had work to do. The Crown Foundation's annual gala transformed the tower's grand ballroom into a glittering spectacle. Crystal chandeliers cast honeyed light across marble floors, while waiters weaved through clusters of Manhattan's elite with champagne flutes balanced on silver trays. Izzy tugged at the hem of her navy silk dress, borrowed from the Foundation's wardrobe department, but chosen for its classic simplicity. No sequins or plunging necklines. She'd won that battle with the stylists at least. "Miss Marlowe." A reporter thrust a microphone toward her face. "How did you become involved with Crown Foundation?" Before she could answer, Jonas appeared at her elbow, perfectly coiffed in his tuxedo. "My sister has always had a passion for community service," he boomed, turning the question into a campaign soundbite. "The Marlowe family's partnership with Crown Global represents our shared vision for the city's future." Izzy resisted rolling her eyes. Trust Jonas to hijack a charity event for political mileage. She felt Matteo's presence before she saw him. He materialized at her other side, commanding attention in a perfectly tailored black suit. "If you'll excuse us," he said smoothly. "Miss Marlowe has other guests to greet." His hand ghosted across her lower back as he guided her away from the press pack. The bar touch sent an unwanted shiver up her spine. "I could have handled them myself," she muttered. "I'm sure you could. But tonight isn't about handling things. It's about presenting the right image." Everything's about image with you, isn't it? A slight smile touched his lips. In this world, always. The evening progressed in a blur of introductions and carefully scripted small talk. Izzy found herself actually enjoying some conversations about the Foundation's recent initiatives, until she noticed a dark-haired man watching her intently from across the room. "Damien Rourke," Matteo said quietly, following her gaze. "CEO of Rourke Industries, our main competitor for the municipal contract." Rourke made his way over, radiating calculated charm. "Matteo, and this must be the lovely Miss Marlowe. Your brother speaks highly of you." "You know Jonas?" Izzy asked. "We've had several interesting meetings lately." Rourke's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though I wonder if he's mentioned certain discrepancies in the municipal planning office's records. Fascinating patterns, really." Matteo's hand tightened on his champagne glass. "Perhaps we should discuss business another time, Damien." "Of course. Lovely party." Rourke melted back into the crowd, leaving an unsettled silence in his wake. Later, Izzy found herself genuinely laughing at a story Matteo told about a disastrous first board meeting. A camera flashed nearby. She thought nothing of it until she saw Camilla rushing over with a tablet an hour later. "Sir." Camilla thrust the screen at Matteo. "The Daily Scene just posted this with implications." The photo showed Izzy and Matteo in an intimate-looking moment, her head thrown back in laughter, his eyes fixed on her face, their bodies angled close. The headline screamed, "Crown's new conquest?" Matteo's jaw tightened. "Shut it down. No more photos tonight. And get legal to review our options." "I don't need you to protect my reputation," Izzy snapped. "This isn't just about you anymore." The rest of the evening passed in a frost of polite smiles and careful distance. After the last guest departed, Izzy helped the Foundation staff organize files from the event in the villa office, needing something productive to do with her frustrated energy. A manila folder slipped from a stack, spilling papers across the desk. As she gathered them up, a weathered ledger caught her eye. The handwriting was familiar. She'd seen it on Jonas's official documents before, but these numbers didn't match any public records she knew of. Her hands trembled as she fed the most damning pages through the copy machine. The name R. Holdings appeared repeatedly beside large transfers, always connecting back to Jonas's office codes. Back in her room at 1 a.m., Izzy spread the copies across her bed. The amounts were staggering, millions flowing through shell companies, each transaction cleverly obscured, but pointing to something rot deep in her brother's dealings. She traced a column of numbers, her mind spinning. Jonas had always played political games, but this felt different, dangerous. What had her family gotten themselves into? And how deep did Matteo's knowledge of it go? The ledger's implications kept her awake long into the night, each page adding another layer to a mystery she wasn't sure she wanted to solve. But she had to know the truth about Jonas, about Matteo's real motives, about how far this all went. Tomorrow she would start digging. For now, she stared at the damning evidence spread before her, wondering if she'd just stumbled onto something bigger than a simple business arrangement or family obligation. The city lights winked through her window like distant stars, offering no answers to the questions keeping her awake. In the tower's silence, Izzy felt the weight of secrets pressing in around her, her family's, Matteo's, and now her own. Sunlight streamed through the tower windows as Izzy stared at her laptop screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She'd drafted and deleted her email to Jonas 3 times already. Finally, she kept it simple. "Need clarification on these Foundation numbers from last quarter, specifically the R Holdings transfers." His response came within minutes, bristling with anger. "Stay out of the books, Izzy. You're there to smile for cameras, not play accountant." Her phone buzzed. Jonas calling. She let it go to voicemail. The community clinic was quiet when Izzy arrived at 11. Sarah, her oldest friend and the clinic's administrator, took one look at her face and pulled her into her cramped office. "Spill," Sarah said, clearing patient files off a chair. "You've got that look." Izzy sank into the seat. "I found something in the Foundation's records, numbers that don't add up, connected to Jonas." "Show me." Izzy pulled out her copied pages. Sarah studied them, her medical training evident in her methodical analysis. "These transfers?" Sarah tapped the paper. "They're structured to look legitimate, but why route them through shell companies?" "Exactly, and Jonas just told me to back off." Sarah handed the papers back carefully. "Be careful, Iz. Money like this, people protect their secrets. I can't just ignore it. No, but maybe don't confront it alone." Sarah squeezed her hand. "Promise me you'll watch your back?" Back at Crown Tower by 2, Izzy found Matteo in the executive lounge, surprisingly alone with 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might need this," he said, sliding one toward her. She accepted it cautiously. "Thanks. You seem troubled today." "Just family complications." Something shifted in his expression. "Those are always the hardest." "Voice of experience?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My sister Alexandra left when I was 15. No warning, no goodbye. Just gone." "What happened?" "She couldn't handle our father's expectations, the pressure to be perfect." His fingers traced the rim of his cup. "I woke up one morning and her room was empty. She'd chosen freedom over family." "Have you heard from her since?" "Once. A postcard from Paris 5 years ago. No return address." Understanding bloomed. His rigid control, his insistence on loyalty, it all stemmed from that teenage abandonment. "I'm sorry," she said softly. His eyes met hers. "Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who hurt us most." The afternoon found them working side by side in the Foundation's conference room, reviewing community programs. Their earlier vulnerability lingered, softening their usual sharp edges. "If we redirect funds from the gala budget," Izzy suggested, "we could expand the clinic's preventive care program. The board expects certain social events, but which matters more, looking good or doing good?" He studied her for a long moment. "Both have value, but you're right, we can find a balance." The board meeting that evening was tense. Several members questioned the new direction, but Matteo backed Izzy's proposals firmly. She felt his support like a warm current through the cold corporate waters. Later, they ended up alone in his office, the city lights twinkling below. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. "You surprised me today," he said quietly. "How?" "Your passion for the work. Your insight." He moved closer. "Your understanding." Her breath caught as he traced her cheek with gentle fingers. "Matteo, tell me to stop." Instead, she kissed him. The kiss deepened, hands exploring, breaths mingling. He backed her against his desk, but when his grip tightened possessively, she placed a firm hand on his chest. "Slow down," she whispered. "I need to know I can trust you." He stilled immediately. "You set the pace." She studied his face, seeing not the powerful CEO but the abandoned boy beneath. "No marks where people can see, no public claims." "Agreed." His thumb brushed her lip. "What else?" "This doesn't change our arrangement. I'm still here on my terms." "Your terms," he echoed, and kissed her again, softer this time. They lost themselves in exploration, finding tender spots and sensitive places. When his hand slipped under her blouse, she arched into his touch but maintained her boundaries. Each advance was met with clear consent or gentle redirection. Eventually they parted, both breathing hard. The heat between them hadn't cooled, but it was banked now, controlled. "I should go," she murmured. He stepped back, giving her space. "Of course." In her room, Izzy touched her swollen lips, still feeling his kisses. She'd kept her power, her agency, even as she'd surrendered to desire. But tomorrow would bring new complications. She could feel it. In his penthouse, Matteo stood at his window, watching the city pulse below. For the first time in years, his carefully ordered world felt wonderfully, terrifyingly unstable. He hadn't expected Izzy Marlowe to crack his armor, hadn't expected to want her to. Neither slept well that night, both haunted by the taste of possibility and the weight of secrets still untold. Izzy's morning coffee turned bitter as she watched the news unfold on her tablet. Damien Rourke's face filled the screen, his practiced concern barely masking predatory satisfaction. Crown Global's attempted monopoly over municipal development must be examined, he declared to a forest of microphones. The public deserves transparency about these backroom deals. Her phone buzzed with texts from Jonas. Damage control now. By noon, the situation exploded. Anonymous documents appeared online suggesting Crown Global had orchestrated the partnership with the Marlowes months ago, long before the public announcement. Social media erupted with speculation about corruption and insider dealing. Camilla burst into Izzy's office. "We need to get ahead of this. It's a hit job," Izzy said. "Damien's trying to block Crown's expansion by dragging us all through the mud." She found Matteo in his office, radiating controlled fury as he watched market indicators drop on multiple screens. "Someone's feeding him information," he said without turning around. "Internal documents, meeting timestamps, communication logs." Izzy's stomach twisted. The ledger in her bag felt heavier. "I might have something." He finally looked at her. "What?" She pulled out the photocopied pages. "I found this in the Foundation's villa records. There's a pattern of payments from 5 years ago, routed through a contractor called Phoenix Holdings to an account linked to Jonas's office." Matteo studied the numbers, his expression darkening. "This could implicate your brother in earlier deals." "I know, but if Damien has similar records, he could destroy both our families." Matteo pressed a button on his desk. "Get me security and legal, now." By 3 o'clock, Crown Tower hummed with controlled chaos. Security teams combed through digital records while lawyers drafted statements. Izzy watched Matteo coordinate it all with terrifying efficiency. "We need to know who had access to these files," he told his head of security. "Every login, every download, every printed page." Izzy worked alongside Camilla, crafting responses that walked the line between transparency and protection. But her mind kept returning to those mysterious payments. What had Jonas gotten himself into? The sun was setting when Matteo's private phone chimed. His face went still as he read the message. "What is it?" Izzy asked. He handed her the phone. The message was brief. "Ask Alexandra about Monaco. Some secrets shouldn't stay buried." "Alexandra, your sister." Izzy's chest tightened at his expression. "Damien's telling me he knows why she left." Matteo's voice was deadly quiet. "He's threatening to expose something from my past." "What happened in Monaco?" "I can't tell you." He turned away, shoulders rigid. "It's better if you don't know." "Better for whom?" She moved to face him. "If we're in this together, I need to trust you." "This isn't about trust. It's about protection." "It's about control," she countered. "You can't expect me to fight blind." "I expect you to understand that some corporate strategies require discretion." "This isn't just corporate anymore. This is personal, for both of us." She gestured at the ledger. "I showed you what I found. I'm trying to help." and I'm trying to protect everything I've built." His tone softened slightly. "Including you. I don't need protection, I need honesty." Their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Matteo spoke. "I can't give you what you're asking. Not yet." Izzy stepped back, hurt, warring with determination. "Then I'll find answers myself." "Izzy, no, you keep your secrets, but don't expect me to sit quietly while Damien threatens both our families." She gathered her things. "I'm going to trace these payments, find out what Jonas was really doing with that money. It's dangerous to dig too deep. So is staying ignorant." She paused at the door. "When you're ready to trust me with the truth about Monaco, you know where to find me." She left him standing in his office, silhouetted against the darkening sky. In her room, she spread out the ledger copies and started making calls. Tomorrow she'd start interviewing family contacts, piecing together the puzzle that connected Crown, the Marlowes, and whatever secrets Damien was using as weapons. The truth was in these numbers somewhere. She just had to find it, with or without Matteo's help. In his office, Matteo stared at his sister's name in Damien's message. Monaco held memories he'd buried for good reason. But now those memories threatened everything: his company, his reputation, and something even more precious: the fragile trust he'd built with Izzy. He poured himself a drink and watched the city lights blur below. For the first time in years, he questioned whether control was worth the cost of silence. The autumn sun cast long shadows across her mother's manicured lawn as Izzy waited. Her fingers traced the worn edges of the ledger pages, now annotated with her careful research. At exactly 11, Jonas's luxury sedan pulled into the circular drive. "This better be important," he said, brushing past her into their mother's formal sitting room. "I have a campaign meeting at 1. Izzy closed the door and spread the photocopied pages on the antique coffee table. "Want to explain these payments from Phoenix Holdings?" Jonas's practiced politician's smile faltered. "Where did you get those?" "They were in the Crown Foundation's villa records. 5 years of quarterly deposits, Jonas, all traced back to your office accounts. You had no right to..." "To what? Find evidence that my brother was taking contractor kickbacks?" "They weren't kickbacks." Jonas paced the Persian rug, his polished facade cracking. "They were legitimate consulting arrangements." "For what? What kind of consulting requires secret payments through shell companies?" "Politics. Isn't as simple as your little charity projects, Izzy." His tone turned condescending. "Sometimes maintaining influence requires creative solutions." "Creative solutions?" She jabbed her finger at a particularly large sum. "This is fraud, Jonas. It's business." He whirled on her. "Do you think campaigns run on good intentions? That maintaining political relationships happens for free? So you admit to taking bribes?" "I admit to doing what was necessary to keep this family's influence intact." His voice dropped dangerously. "And if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll make sure you regret it." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. You expose this. You're not just ruining me. You're destroying everything our parents built." He grabbed her arm. "Everything Sarah needs for her treatments." Izzy jerked away. "Don't you dare use Sarah as leverage." "Then be smart about this. Bury those records and forget what you found." "Or what? Or I'll deny everything and make sure everyone knows you're just a bitter, jealous sister trying to sabotage her successful brother." His smile returned, cold and sharp. "Who do you think they'll believe? The respected politician or the plain middle child who couldn't hack it in the real world?" Izzy's hands shook as she gathered the papers. "Get out. Think carefully about your next move, sister dear." He straightened his tie. "Some doors, once opened, can't be closed." After Jonas left, Izzy sat alone in the quiet room, her mother's collection of family photos mocking her from the walls. At 3 o'clock, she heard Vivian's key in the door. "Darling?" Her mother appeared, elegant as always in her designer suit. "Jonas said you were upset about something." "Did you know?" Izzy asked quietly. "About the payments?" Vivian's perfectly maintained composure cracked slightly. "Oh, sweetheart. How long?" "It started when Sarah first got sick." Vivian sank onto the sofa. The medical bills were astronomical. Insurance wouldn't cover the experimental treatments. Your father's pension wasn't enough. "So you let Jonas take bribes?" "We let him handle things." Vivian's hands twisted in her lap. "The contractors offered to help, in exchange for consideration on certain projects. It seemed like an answer to our prayers." "It was illegal, Mum." "It was survival." Vivian's voice rose. "Do you know what it's like to choose between your child's life and your principles? To watch your baby suffer while bureaucrats deny coverage?" Izzy felt tears burn her eyes. "You should have told me." "And burden you too. You were already working 3 jobs to help with Sarah's care." Vivian reached for her hand. Jonas promised he could manage it legally, through consulting contracts and campaign contributions. I chose to believe him. And now Damien Rourke is threatening to expose everything. Please, Izzy." Her mother's grip tightened. "Sarah's finally stable. The Foundation's work is helping so many families like ours. If this comes out, I know." Izzy pulled away gently. "But I can't just ignore it. What are you going to do?" Izzy stared at the family photos, at Sarah's smiling face before the illness hit, at Jonas in his first campaign victory, at her parents' proud expressions at charity galas. "I'm going to find out exactly who was involved and why," she said finally. "There has to be a way to address the corruption without destroying innocent lives." "You always were the moral compass of this family." Vivian's smile was sad. "Just be careful, darling. The truth isn't always kind." By 6 o'clock, Izzy was back in her car, heading toward Crown Tower. Her mind raced with possibilities. The contractor payments weren't just about Jonas. They were tied to larger development deals, possibly the same ones Matteo was pursuing now. She needed to map the connections without exposing Sarah or the Foundation's legitimate work. She could work both angles, use her position at Crown to access records while quietly investigating the contractor trail. Maybe there was a way to force accountability without complete destruction. The setting sun painted Crown Tower in shades of fire as she pulled into the private garage. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jonas. "Final warning. Drop it." She deleted the message and squared her shoulders. Let him threaten. Let him posture. She had evidence now, and more importantly, she had purpose. The truth would come out, but on her terms, in a way that protected the vulnerable while exposing the truly guilty. She just had to figure out how to navigate between family loyalty and moral necessity, between exposure and protection. As the elevator carried her upward, Izzy touched the ledger in her bag. Somewhere in these numbers lay the key to understanding not just her family's corruption, but perhaps Matteo's secrets as well. She just had to be smart enough and brave enough to find it. Matteo's office glowed like a fortress against the darkening skyline. He stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, jaw tight as his legal team delivered their report. Ms. Marlowe spent 2 hours with Jonas this morning, followed by a private meeting with Vivian Marlowe. His head counsel explained. Our sources indicate heated discussions about Foundation ledgers and historical contractor relationships. Matteo's fingers tightened on his phone. And you're certain about the content? The timing aligns with sensitive municipal project data. Given the Marlowe family's complicated history with those contracts, it presents a significant risk. He ended the call and pressed his forehead against the cool glass. Izzy's earlier passion for truth had seemed admirable, even attractive. Now it felt dangerous. Personal investigation was one thing, but family loyalty could compromise everything. At his desk, he pulled up the partnership agreement. His legal team had already drafted a revision with additional clauses. Mandatory disclosure of all family communications, Crown oversight of any independent research, and full cooperation with internal investigations. The words felt like armor, protecting Crown's interests. But as he signed the bottom, something twisted in his chest. This wasn't just business anymore. The memory of Izzy's laugh during their late-night strategy session, the way she'd challenged him to be better. It complicated everything. At 9 o'clock, he found her in the Foundation's research room, surrounded by paper trails and database printouts. "We need to talk," he said, placing the revised agreement on her desk. Izzy glanced at the document, then at him. "What's this?" "Insurance. Given your recent meetings with Jonas and your mother, you're having me watched." She stood, color rising in her cheeks. "I'm protecting Crown's interests." He kept his voice level. "Your family connections present certain risks. My family connections are why you wanted me in the first place." She snatched up the agreement, scanning the new terms. "Mandatory disclosure, oversight of personal communications. This is control, not protection." "It's business. It's paranoia." She threw the papers down. "You can't handle anyone operating outside your perfect system of control. And you can't see past your naive idealism to understand how the real world works." He stepped closer, fighting to maintain his composed facade. "Corporate wars aren't won with truth and justice, Izzy. They're won with strategy and control." "Is that what I am to you? Another piece on your corporate chessboard?" "You're an asset who's becoming a liability." The words came out harsher than he intended. Izzy recoiled, as if he'd slapped her. "At least now you're being honest. That's all anyone is to you, isn't it? Assets or liabilities? Numbers on a balance sheet?" "Don't pretend you're above practical considerations. You signed the original contract to save your family." "Yes, I did. And I've honored every term. But this?" She gestured at the revised agreement. "This is you trying to own my personal life, my relationships, my integrity." "Your integrity won't matter if Damien Rourke uses your family's secrets to destroy everything we've built." "Everything you've built," she corrected. "The Foundation's real work, the people we help, that's what I'm trying to protect. But you can't see past profit margins and power plays." They stood facing each other, the air electric with tension. Matteo wanted to shake her, make her understand the brutal realities of his world. Instead, he said coldly, "Sign the revision by morning." "Or what? You'll destroy my family anyway?" Her laugh was bitter. "Go ahead, but I won't sign away my right to seek the truth. Truth without strategy is just self-destruction. And strategy without truth is just manipulation." She gathered her coat. "I'm going to the community center. At least there, the work means something real." "It's nearly midnight." "Better midnight honest work than daytime deals with the devil." She paused at the door. "You know what's funny? For a moment I thought you were different. That behind all this—" She gestured at his pristine office. "There was someone who actually cared about more than power." "Caring doesn't win wars." "No," she said softly. "It just makes us human." The door closed behind her with a quiet click that felt like thunder. Matteo stood in the silence, the revised agreement lying unsigned between them like a battle line. He returned to his office, but the familiar sanctuary felt hollow. On his screens, market data scrolled endlessly, the language of power he'd always understood. But now other images intruded. Izzy laughing with volunteers, her fierce defense of community programs, the way she'd looked at him when he'd shared stories of his sister. The night deepened. From his window, he could see a single light still burning at the community center. He imagined her there, sorting donations or updating program files, refusing to let his corporate machinations derail her mission. His phone buzzed with updates from his legal team. Contingency plans, risk assessments, strategy options. The familiar dance of corporate warfare. But for the first time in years, the steps felt wrong. He poured himself a drink, staring at the city lights. Somewhere in the tangle of family secrets, corporate ambitions, and unexpected emotions, there had to be a solution that didn't require sacrificing either success or soul. But as midnight approached, both Matteo and Izzy remained in their separate corners of the city. The distance between them measured not in blocks but in principles. His revised agreement sat unsigned, her investigation continued uncontrolled, and the warm connection they'd begun to build cooled in the shadow of power and pride. Matteo adjusted his tie, studying his reflection in the elevator's polished walls. The shareholder meeting would set the tone for today's offensive. He'd spent the night crafting a strategy that would showcase strength, while containing the damage from both Damien's threats and Izzy's investigation. The conference room buzzed with anticipation as he strode in at precisely 9 a.m. Board members and major shareholders filled the seats, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. Recent headlines about the Marlowe connection had made them nervous. Crown Global remains committed to growth through strategic partnerships. Matteo began, his voice carrying the practiced authority that had built empires. Our alliance with the Marlowes has already shown promising results in community engagement. He clicked through slides showcasing improved metrics, careful to frame everything in terms of corporate benefit rather than emotional investment. We're implementing new structural reforms to ensure all partnerships maintain professional boundaries and serve shareholder interests. The room nodded appreciatively. This was the Matteo Crown they knew. Calculating, controlled, committed to the bottom line. Not the man who'd shared private wounds over late-night coffee with a stubborn community advocate. By 10:30 a.m., his phone exploded with notifications. Damien had made his move. Crown Ambassador implicated in family scandal, screamed the headlines. Below them, a supposedly leaked email showed Izzy discussing arrangements with Jonas. The context was stripped away, making innocent phrases sound damning. Matteo's jaw clenched. The email was clearly doctored, Damien's crude attempt to force his hand. But the damage was spreading. Social media lit up with speculation. Crown's stock price wavered. At noon, Izzy received a text that made her blood run cold. An old family friend who worked in city contracts warned that Jonas's involvement went deeper than anyone knew. Names, dates, amounts, all pointing to systematic corruption rather than isolated incidents. She tried calling Jonas. Straight to voicemail. Vivian was resting and couldn't talk. The walls were closing in. By 4 p.m., Izzy escaped to the community center, seeking clarity in honest work. She sorted donations, helped with homework programs, listened to parents sharing their struggles. These were the people who depended on the programs the Marlowes supported, whatever their flaws. A single mother described how the center's childcare allowed her to keep her job. An elderly man tearfully explained how the meal program helped him survive between Social Security checks. Their stories crystallized Izzy's decision. She drafted her statement carefully, balancing truth with protection. No specific accusations, no dramatic revelations, just an honest acknowledgement of past mistakes and a commitment to transparency going forward. At 7:30 p.m., she showed Matteo the draft in his office. His reaction was immediate and absolute. Absolutely not. He didn't even look up from his computer. This statement admits liability and invites investigation. It's corporate suicide. It's called taking responsibility. Izzy countered. People respect honesty. People respect power. This makes us look weak. Us? She raised an eyebrow. You mean you? His eyes finally met hers, cold and hard. I forbid this statement's release. That's final. You don't have the right to forbid anything about my family's choices. I have every right to protect Crown Global's interests. At 8:00 p.m. sharp, Izzy hit send on the email to her media contacts. Her statement appeared minutes later. The Marlowe family acknowledges that past decisions, made under various pressures, may not have met the highest ethical standards. While context matters, responsibility matters more. We are committed to full transparency and reform, starting with internal review of all processes. Our community work continues, guided by integrity rather than expediency. The response was immediate. Social media praised her courage. Community leaders called it refreshing. Even some business commentators noted its strategic wisdom, getting ahead of the story rather than hiding from it. Matteo's reaction was nuclear. His call came at 8:45 p.m. You directly defied me. His voice was deadly quiet. I made a choice about my family's reputation. You compromised Crown's position, made us look complicit. I made us look honest. She shot back. Something you might try sometime. Honesty without strategy is suicide in this world. Then maybe this world needs to change. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Finally, Matteo spoke. You've forced my hand. Tomorrow, Crown Global will issue a statement distancing ourselves from your initiative. Of course you will. Izzy's voice was tired. Because control matters more than truth. Because survival matters more than idealism. She ended the call, staring out at the city lights. In one direction lay Crown Tower, its glass and steel reaching for the stars. In the other, the community center's humble windows still glowed. Two worlds, two value systems colliding in her heart. Her phone buzzed with reactions to her statement. Support, criticism, questions, offers for interviews. She ignored them all, focusing instead on a thank you message from a community center regular. You did the right thing. Sometimes that's all we can do. Meanwhile, in his penthouse office, Matteo drafted Crown Global's response. Each careful word pushed Izzy further away, reinforcing corporate boundaries she'd dared to cross. The betrayal stung deeper than he'd expected. He'd thought she understood the necessities of his world. But as he worked, her words echoed. Maybe this world needs to change. He pushed the thought away. Change was dangerous. Control was safe. Tomorrow he would remind everyone of that truth. The night deepened. Two people who'd begun to bridge their worlds now retreated to separate corners, each convinced of their path's righteousness. Between them lay the question neither could answer. What matters more, the truth that sets us free, or the walls we build to feel safe? Crown Global's statement dropped at precisely 9:11 a.m., each word calculated for maximum corporate distance. In light of recent developments, Crown Global clarifies that Eliza Marlowe serves as an independent consultant. The company takes no position on private family matters and will focus on its core business objectives. The market response was immediate. Crown stock dipped 3 points in the first hour. Financial analysts buzzed about instability in partnerships and questions of judgment. Izzy saw the statement on her phone while organizing files at the foundation office. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept working. The foundation staff watched her with mixture of sympathy and awkward distance, unsure where loyalties should lie. In the executive suite, Matteo's board members filed in for an emergency meeting. Harrison Wells, the lead director, didn't mince words. This partnership has become a liability, he stated flatly. The market hates uncertainty, and right now we're drowning in it. Other board members nodded. Patricia Chen, head of risk assessment, pulled up a presentation showing potential exposure. We're looking at significant brand damage if this continues. The Marlowe connection needs to be severed completely." Matteo sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. He'd barely slept, turning over Izzy's words about truth and change. But the numbers didn't lie. Crown Global employed thousands, managed billions in assets, supported countless dependents through its operations. By 11:30 a.m., the lawyers arrived with termination documents. Matteo read through them mechanically. Dissolution of consulting agreement, retraction of foundation role, immediate cessation of all public appearances. "Sign here," the head counsel indicated. "We'll handle the rest." Matteo's pen hovered over the paper. He thought of Izzy's fierce integrity, her genuine connection with the community projects. But the weight of corporate responsibility pressed down like a physical force. He signed at 11:45 a.m. Camilla executed the plan with brutal efficiency. At 12:30 p.m., a second statement went out. Crown Global announces the conclusion of its consulting arrangement with Eliza Marlowe, effective immediately. The Foundation thanks her for past contributions and wishes her well in future endeavors. Izzy was in the community center when she saw it. The formal language felt like a slap. Volunteers watched as she read it, their faces showing concern. She managed a tight smile. "Well?" she said to no one in particular. "At least they wished me well." She gathered her belongings from her office, fitting 3 months of work into one cardboard box. Photos from foundation events, program proposals she'd drafted, thank you notes from families they'd helped. All of it suddenly felt like artifacts from another life. At 3:00 p.m., she took the elevator to the executive floor one last time. Matteo's assistant tried to stop her, but Izzy walked past, pushing open his office door. He stood at the window, hands clasped behind his back. "You shouldn't be here." "Coward," she said quietly. "You couldn't even tell me yourself." He turned, his face rigid with control. "I have responsibilities." "To what? Your stock price? Your image?" "To thousands of employees who depend on Crown's stability, to pension funds, to market confidence, to everything except basic human decency." She cut in. "I told the truth. That's all. Truth without strategy is suicide in this world. Yes, you've said." She placed her badge on his desk. "Maybe that's why this world is so sick." His jaw tightened. "You're being naive. And you're being a coward, hiding behind lawyers and press releases because you're afraid to face what's real." Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, perhaps, or regret. But his voice remained steady. "Security will escort you out." She laughed, a hollow sound. "Don't bother. I know my way." At 4:00 p.m., Izzy left Crown Tower for the last time. Paparazzi clustered at the entrance, shouting questions. She walked past them, head high, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. The drive to her mother's house felt surreal. 3 months ago she'd been dragged into this arrangement against her will. Now, leaving felt like losing something she hadn't known she wanted. Vivian was waiting when she arrived. "Darling, I saw the news." "Not now, Mom." Izzy headed upstairs to pack. Her old room looked exactly as she'd left it. She threw clothes into suitcases, gathered important documents, tried not to think about the penthouse suite she'd reluctantly grown used to. Her phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, foundation contacts, even Jonas trying to manage the situation. She ignored them all. At 8:30 p.m., she found her mother's spare house key and wrote a note. "Taking the guest room. We'll figure out next steps tomorrow." By 9:00 p.m., she was settled in the familiar twin bed of their family home's guest room, staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling she'd stared at during countless family crises, political scandals, and personal disappointments. But this felt different. This wasn't just about family obligation or political maneuvering. Somewhere between the arguments and the quiet moments, between the public performances and private revelations, she'd started to believe in something more. Her phone showed one last news alert. Crown Global stabilizes after partnership dissolution. Of course it did. The market always preferred clean breaks to messy truths. She turned off her phone, cutting off the last connection to the world she'd briefly inhabited. Tomorrow she would start fresh. No corporate backing, no political protection, just her own determination to set things right. Outside her window, Crown Tower's lights pierced the skyline, a reminder of everything she'd gained and lost. In his penthouse office, Matteo stared at the same night sky, telling himself he'd made the only possible choice. Both of them lay awake, separated by wealth and principle and fear, each wondering if the price of their convictions had been worth the cost. 48 hours after Izzy's departure, Matteo's office hummed with focused intensity. His private investigator, Blake, had set up a command center in the conference room adjacent to Matteo's office, walls covered with timelines and connection maps. "Show me what you found," Matteo demanded at 7 a.m. on day 1. Blake pulled up phone records. "We traced calls from Damien's firm to 3 burner phones, all activated the week before the first leak." Matteo paced, his reflection ghosting across the glass walls. "And the contractor? Maxwell Construction. They're the link." Blake pointed to a series of transactions. Same company that appeared in the Marlowe ledger. Throughout that first morning, Matteo's team monitored communications. At 11:30 a.m., they intercepted an email chain between Damien's associates discussing document manipulation. "Look at the metadata," Blake said, highlighting timestamps. They created these leaked emails after the dates they claimed they're from. Matteo's jaw tightened. He'd let Damien manipulate him into pushing Izzy away. The realization sat like acid in his stomach. By 2 p.m., his legal team had compiled a detailed timeline of Damien's interference. The pattern was clear. Each leak had been carefully orchestrated to drive a wedge between Crown and the Marlowes. "He wanted us fighting each other instead of looking at him," Matteo muttered. At 4 p.m., a breakthrough. They located Jennifer Chen, former bookkeeper for Maxwell Construction. She'd left the company 6 months ago, but had maintained detailed records. Day 2 began with an aggressive deep dive into those records. Matteo cancelled all other appointments, focusing entirely on unraveling Damien's scheme. "The payment structures mirror each other," Blake explained at 9 a.m., spreading documents across Matteo's desk. Damien's firm used the same shells, same routing numbers that appear in the Marlowe ledger. "But look at the dates." Matteo leaned in. The Marlowe transactions were old, from Jonas's early political days. Damien's were recent, deliberate copies designed to create a false pattern. By noon, they had proof that Damien had accessed sealed records about the Marlowes through a corrupt clerk. He'd used that information to craft his forgeries. He studied their past to frame them. Matteo said, "And I played right into it by distancing us from Izzy." At 3 p.m., Jennifer Chen arrived at Crown Tower through a private entrance. She brought additional documentation, internal memos showing explicit instructions to mirror the Marlowe payment structure. They wanted it to look identical, she explained. Mr. Rourke's team was very specific about matching formats, even down to the routing codes. Matteo's hands clenched. He'd let Damien manipulate his fears about trust and control. Worse, he'd abandoned Izzy when she'd been right all along about transparency. At 5 p.m., his team compiled a comprehensive brief proving the forgeries. The evidence was irrefutable. Damien had engineered every leak, every scandal, every doubt. "We can take this to the SEC," Blake suggested. "End his firm." But Matteo was already drafting a different plan. Corporate warfare wasn't enough. He needed to make this right personally. By 7:00 p.m., he had outlined a three-part strategy. First, a public statement admitting his error in doubting Izzy. Second, full disclosure of Damien's manipulation with supporting evidence. Third, a reorganization of Crown's foundation with Izzy given independent authority, if she would accept. His PR team argued against such transparency. The market hates uncertainty, Camilla warned. The market will adapt. Matteo said, I'm done letting fear of perception drive my choices. At 8:00 p.m., he finalized the documents. The risk was enormous. Admitting a mistake of this magnitude could shake investor confidence, tank Crown's stock, even trigger board resistance. But for the first time in his career, Matteo didn't care about those consequences. He thought of Izzy's face when she'd confronted him, her quiet accusation of cowardice. She'd been right. He'd spent his life building walls to protect himself, using wealth and power as armor. Izzy had challenged those walls, forced him to question when protection became prison. He reviewed the statement one final time. No corporate speak, no careful hedging. Just the truth. He'd been wrong. He'd let fear cloud his judgment, and he was ready to make it right. His phone showed a text from Blake. Final confirmation that Jennifer Chen would testify if needed. The case against Damien was solid. But that wasn't enough. Clearing Izzy's name professionally wouldn't erase how he'd failed her personally. That would take more than press releases and legal vindication. Matteo stood at his window, looking toward the neighborhood where he knew Izzy was staying. The same view that had witnessed their arguments, their moments of connection, and ultimately his failure to stand by her. The evidence was spread across his desk, proof that he'd doubted when he should have trusted, retreated when he should have fought. Tomorrow he would take the first step toward fixing that mistake, whatever the cost. His security team delivered the final verification of Jennifer Chen's documents at 8:30 p.m. Everything was in place. In the morning, he would detonate his carefully controlled public image and hope that truth was enough to begin rebuilding what fear had broken. The Crown Tower lobby buzzed with confusion as reporters rushed in at 6:00 p.m. No pre-distributed press packets, no carefully arranged podium. Just Matteo Crown, standing before them without his usual armor of preparation. I've made mistakes, he began, his voice carrying across the shocked silence. As CEO of Crown Global, I've always prioritized corporate stability, but sometimes protecting an image means betraying what's right. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. Several reporters straightened, sensing this wasn't the usual corporate spin. Last week, we distanced ourselves from Eliza Marlowe based on leaked documents and apparent evidence of impropriety. That was wrong. Not just corporately wrong, personally wrong. In the Marlowe family living room, Izzy sat frozen before the television. Her mother gripped her hand as Matteo continued. We have evidence that Damien Rourke orchestrated a coordinated campaign to discredit both Crown Global and the Marlowes. His firm fabricated documents, planted false stories, and manipulated existing records to create the appearance of impropriety. He detailed the discovery of Jennifer Chen's testimony and the matching payment structures. His usual measured tone gave way to controlled anger. But Rourke's actions don't excuse mine. When faced with pressure, I chose corporate convenience over personal integrity. I abandoned someone who showed us what real transparency looks like. The reporter's hands shot up, but Matteo wasn't taking questions yet. Effective immediately, Crown Global is launching a full internal investigation. We're pursuing legal action against Rourke's firm for corporate espionage and defamation. But more importantly, he paused, and for the first time, his composed facade cracked slightly. I owe Eliza Marlowe a public apology. In the Marlowe living room, Izzy's breath caught. Her mother squeezed her hand tighter. Ms. Marlowe advocated for honest community engagement and transparent operations. Instead of supporting those principles, I allowed fear of market perception to override basic human decency. I was wrong. Matteo's gaze seemed to find the camera directly. The Crown Foundation needs rebuilding, not just structurally, but ethically. I'm asking Ms. Marlowe to help lead that transformation on her terms, with full autonomy and equal authority. The press erupted with questions. Matteo handled them with unprecedented candor, acknowledging the risk to stock prices, but emphasizing that integrity mattered more than short-term market reaction. By 6:45 p.m., social media was ablaze. Some investors publicly questioned Matteo's judgment, but others praised the bold move toward transparency. Crown Confession trended alongside messages supporting Izzy. At 9:30 p.m., Izzy arrived at the community center, needing the familiar comfort of organizing tomorrow's after-school programs. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the press conference. She was sorting art supplies when she heard footsteps at 10 p.m. Matteo stood in the doorway, his tie loosened, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "I should have come to you first," he said quietly, before the press conference. Izzy set down a stack of construction paper. "Why didn't you?" "Because I needed to make it public first. No backroom deals, no private arrangements. Complete transparency." He moved into the room, taking in the modest space with its worn tables and carefully organized supplies. "I have the full evidence file here." He placed a thick folder on the table. "Jennifer Chen's testimony, the traced payment records, everything showing how Rourke manipulated us both. But that's not why I came." Izzy crossed her arms. "Why did you come?" "Because a public apology isn't enough. I need to show you how we'll make this right." He pulled out another document. "This is a proposal for restructuring the Crown Foundation. Independent board, public oversight, with you as co-director if you're willing. Equal authority, complete autonomy over community programs." She picked up the proposal, scanning it carefully. "And if I disagree with your decisions?" "Then we find compromise, or you maintain your right to act independently. It's all in writing." Izzy studied him. "You're really willing to give up that much control?" "I'm willing to admit that control isn't always the answer." He met her gaze directly. "You taught me that." She walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood they were supposed to be helping. "I need proof this isn't just another corporate move." "Name it." "First, I want Jennifer Chen's testimony public, not just in court, but to the press. Second, I choose my own team for the foundation. Third, we create a community oversight board with real power." "Done," Matteo said without hesitation. "Anything else?" Izzy turned back to him. "Yes, I want to know why. The real reason." Matteo was quiet for a moment. "Because you were right about me. I've spent my life building walls, using wealth and power as shields. When Rourke attacked, I retreated behind those walls instead of standing with you. I don't want to be that person anymore." The honesty in his voice made her throat tight. "This won't be easy. The market will adapt or won't. Either way, I'm done letting fear drive my choices." Izzy picked up the proposal again. "Conditional terms. We try this for 3 months. If it works, we formalize the structure. If not, I walk away with a public statement of my choosing." Matteo nodded. "I'll have legal draw it up tonight." They stood in the quiet community center, surrounded by children's artwork and the possibility of something new. Not just professionally, but personally. A test of trust that could rebuild what fear had broken. "Tomorrow morning, then," Izzy said. "We start with the legal strategy against Rourke." "Tomorrow morning," Matteo agreed. Together. Monday morning hit Crown Tower like a tidal wave. At precisely 10:10 a.m., Matteo's legal team filed a comprehensive lawsuit against Damien Rourke, the documents landing with thunderous impact across multiple jurisdictions. Izzy watched from the newly established Community Oversight Office as Matteo delivered the news to his board. Her laptop displayed real-time market reactions, Crown stock wavered, then steadied as investors digested the evidence. The filing includes 37 counts of fraud. Matteo explained to the assembled press at noon. We have concrete evidence of document falsification and coordinated market manipulation. By Tuesday morning, preliminary injunctions were in place. Damien's firm scrambled to contain the damage, but their crisis management fell apart when Jennifer Chen, the former bookkeeper, stepped forward with detailed records. Wednesday brought the depositions. Izzy sat through hours of testimony, watching Damien's carefully constructed facade crumble. His attorneys looked increasingly desperate as document after document revealed the elaborate scheme to pit Crown against the Marlowes. He wanted both families weakened. Jennifer Chen testified on Thursday. The doctored emails were just the start. There were entire networks of shell companies funneling money to create false trails. Jonas Marlowe requested a private meeting with Izzy that same afternoon. In his office, the polished political veneer had worn thin. I did take payments, he admitted, hands shaking slightly as he poured himself water. But it was for the Community Health Initiative, the after-school programs. We were desperate for funding. You should have told me, Izzy said quietly. We could have found another way. Pride, Jonas replied. Always my downfall. Friday morning, Izzy released her statement. She'd spent hours crafting it with the community board, ensuring every word served truth while protecting those who depended on Marlowe-supported programs. I acknowledge my own blindness to certain realities, she wrote. But we must focus now on protecting vital community services while building more transparent structures for the future. The media response was immediate and largely positive. Commentators praised her balance of accountability and forward-thinking protection of vulnerable beneficiaries. Saturday brought the watershed moment. At 7:00 p.m., under careful studio lights, Vivian Marlowe faced her daughter on national television. I failed you, Izzy, Vivian said, tears genuine despite the cameras. I tried to protect the family name instead of protecting you. I'm so sorry. Izzy reached across and took her mother's hand. We all made mistakes. Now we fix them together. By 9:00 p.m., breaking news reported that Damien's firm had suspended him pending investigation. The preliminary restraining order had revealed damning evidence in seized records, not just against Damien, but exposing a broader network of corporate manipulation. Late Saturday night, Jonas made his announcement. I will not seek re-election, he stated simply. My focus now must be on rebuilding family trust and supporting community healing. Sunday brought quieter moments of reconciliation. Over coffee in the Marlowe kitchen, Vivian shared old photos, stories of better times. Jonas stopped by briefly, awkward but trying. The foundation programs will continue, Izzy assured them, but with proper oversight now. Real transparency. That evening, Matteo invited Izzy to his office. The space felt different, warmer somehow, with the addition of community artwork on one wall. I want to show you something, he said, leading her to a conference room where architectural plans covered the table. The new Crown Foundation structure, separate board, independent oversight, direct community input channels, but it needs the right leadership. He turned to her. Equal partnership. Your expertise, your integrity, helping shape something better than what we had before. Izzy studied the plans, noting the careful balance of power, the multiple accountability channels. You're really ready to share control? I'm ready to build something worthy of trust, Matteo replied, but only if you'll help lead it. Through the windows, the city lights sparkled. Somewhere out there, families were beginning to believe in the possibility of real change, not just corporate promises. Partners, then, Izzy said, but we do this right. No shortcuts, no compromises on ethics. No shortcuts, Matteo agreed. We build it to last. The week had transformed them all. Exposed lies, yes, but also revealed deeper truths about family, integrity, and the courage to admit mistakes. As Sunday evening settled over the city, new foundations were taking shape, built on harder but more honest ground. In the Marlowe living room, Vivian carefully placed old family photos back in their albums. Jonas's office sat dark, his political posters already removed. And in the Crown Foundation's community centre, children's artwork hung alongside corporate reports, a visual reminder that the best changes often start with the simplest truths. Morning light filtered through the townhouse windows as Izzy stirred her coffee at the kitchen island. 7:30 a.m., and already the day felt charged with possibility. She watched Matteo moving around their shared space, no longer the rigid CEO, but a man who'd learned to leave his armor at the door. "You don't have to iron my blouse," she said, hiding a smile as he meticulously pressed the silk. "I can handle my own wrinkles." "I know you can." He focused on the collar with surprising precision. "But you hate ironing, and I actually find it meditative." This was their new normal, small acts of care that preserved independence rather than demanding surrender. The townhouse itself represented their compromise: warm brick walls instead of glass towers, a home chosen together rather than assigned. Matteo handed her the pressed blouse, then leaned against the counter. "Nervous about the launch?" "Not nervous. Ready." Izzy sipped her coffee. The community board approved every detail. Real change, not just PR. The Crown Foundation's flagship program had been her vision: sustainable funding for education and healthcare initiatives, with community leaders holding actual voting power. Matteo had supported it fully, even when it meant ceding control he once would have clutched tight. "Jonas called yesterday," she mentioned, "the youth centre's exceeding expectations." "Your brother's found his place," Matteo observed. Her older brother had traded political ambition for genuine community work, running a non-profit that actually helped people. The transformation had been gradual but profound. At 10:30 a.m., they arrived separately at the Foundation's new community hub, her choice, maintaining professional boundaries. The space hummed with excitement: local leaders, program recipients, and yes, some carefully vetted press. Camilla, still handling PR but with a lighter touch now, gave them both a thumbs up. Full house, and Damien's indictment made the morning papers. Perfect timing. At 11:30 a.m. sharp, Matteo took the podium. Gone was the imperious CEO who'd first appeared on morning news a year ago. Instead, he spoke with measured humility. This foundation's strength comes not from its funding, but from its community. He began. "I learned, sometimes the hard way, that real change requires us to listen more than we speak, to share power rather than wield it." When Izzy stepped up to present the program details, her authority was evident. No one saw her as a PR prop or a family obligation. She'd earned this role through competence and conviction. "Today we launch more than a program," she announced. "We're establishing a new model of corporate responsibility, one where community voices hold real power, where transparency isn't just a buzzword." The morning unfolded with precision: ribbon cutting, tours of the facility, and most importantly, community members speaking about their roles in shaping the Foundation's future. Vivian Marlowe attended quietly, proudly watching her daughter lead without trying to direct the spotlight. During a brief private moment between events, Matteo caught Izzy's hand. "You've transformed this place," he said softly. "Transformed me too, if we're being honest." "We transformed each other," she corrected. That was always the only way this would work. The afternoon brought more practical matters: board meetings where community representatives had equal votes, program reviews with real accountability measures. Izzy moved through it all with confident ease, while Matteo demonstrated his new skill, supporting without dominating. News alerts pinged throughout the day about Damien's case. His assets remained frozen, his legal troubles mounting as more evidence emerged. But that drama felt distant now, like a storm finally past. By 9:00 p.m., they were back in their kitchen. Izzy kicked off her heels while Matteo loosened his tie. The formality of the day melted away as they moved around each other with comfortable familiarity. "Let me handle those reports," Matteo offered, eyeing the stack she'd brought home. "You hate statistical analysis." "I do hate it," she agreed, then grinned. "But I'm still doing it. You can make dinner instead." He laughed, a free sound that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "Deal, but I'm not making those vegetarian meatballs again. Some experiments shouldn't be repeated." This was their balance. He offered care without control. She maintained independence without walls. They'd learned to dance between power and vulnerability, strength and surrender. As Matteo chopped vegetables, he'd actually become a decent cook. Izzy worked through her reports at the kitchen island. The quiet domesticity felt earned rather than imposed. They'd built this peace deliberately, brick by brick. "The education initiative numbers look promising," she noted. He replied, focused on not burning the garlic. "Tell me over dinner. I actually want to hear about it, not just pretend to listen while thinking about stock prices." She smiled at his self-awareness. The man who once treated everything like a hostile takeover now made stir-fry in their kitchen, genuinely interested in program metrics and community feedback. Their phones stayed dark, no crisis calls, no PR emergencies, no family drama. Jonas was probably at his youth center, Vivian at her book club. The world had settled into new patterns, healthier ones. Matteo plated their dinner with unexpected grace. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "about taking a step back from the tech division. Let Williams handle more of the day-to-day." "Oh?" Izzy looked up from her reports. "Your choice, or are you fishing for my approval?" "Entirely my choice," he assured her. "I'm finding I prefer building things to conquering them. Strange how that happens." This was what they'd built together, a partnership where power flowed both ways, where vulnerability wasn't weakness but strength. Their shared life wasn't perfect. They still argued about board decisions and household chores, but it was deeply, authentically theirs.